Welcome! My name's Jan Ögren. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, an international author, and storyteller. I'm also a lifelong UU, which is Unitarian Universalist. And that is a non-creedal, non-dogmatic religion. That's a little bit unique in that sense, because what we do is we encourage everyone to search for their own truth or wisdom, and to respect the inherent worth and dignity of all people, and to live within the interdependent web of all life. What you're about to see is a service that I did called Creativity, a nice concept or a vital necessity, at the congregation in Alameda, California on December 28th, 2014. So welcome. First one is Creativity by Clara Barton, a Unitarian Universalist, well actually a Universalist layperson that was way before the merger. She's founder of the American Red Cross. And she said, "I have a complete disregard of precedent and a faith in the possibility of something better. It irritates me to be told how things have always been done. I defy the tyranny of precedent. I cannot afford the luxury of a closed mind. I go for anything new that might improve the past." The second one is French philosopher Gaston Bachelard. Says, "The imagination is ceaselessly imagining and enriching itself with new images. And the goal of imagination is nothing less than liberation itself. Liberation being a special characteristic of the activity of the imagination, which liberates us from the forces that hold us imprisoned in the here. Imagination is so vast, so free, that it grows our souls and allows us to contemplate grandeur. The cosmos, our imagination births, is even larger than the physical cosmos. We become transported outside the immediate world to a world that bears the mark of infinity." Well, it's really nice being back here again, because this congregation created itself just about 5 years ago. And you're continuing to create, and I come from a congregation in Petaluma that created itself about 12 years ago. So it's really nice to just feel how much someone can do, or someone's can do with ideas of let's form a new fellowship. But I have to admit that doing a service on creativity can be a little bit intimidating. Because after all, kind of as Jay was saying, I like a creative person, who's questioning if he's creative enough. I'm a psychotherapist, I'm not an artist, and, I'm not a musician. Yes, I published a book, but it wasn't a bestseller, so do I get credit for that, I mean, has anyone else ever questioned if they're creative enough? Is there stuff? Oh, good. So maybe I'm in good company here, and it's okay if I explore creativity. But I do find that there are these annoying voices, these criticisms that say, am I creative enough? Is this good enough? And all. And so, like Claire and Gaston said in the readings, there might be something more if I could just get beyond this critical voice. So I thought, well, where did that criticism start? What happened? I took a journey, and so I'll invite you to go back with me. This is the 1970s, and I'm in 7th grade. And by then I'd already realized that, it was my brother, my older brother, who could do art, and my other brother who could sing and do music, and I kind of tried to stay away from art, but it was a required course. So there I was, sitting at a table, and we were doing etchings. There's a black piece of paper, and I had this little knife, and we were making these drawings, and I was drawing these cats with paw prints going across the page, And the teacher was walking around, peering over everyone's shoulder, looking to see what they were doing. And then at one point, she comes up behind me and she taps me on the shoulder and she goes, Jan, I want to speak to you outside. You imagine, yeah, pretty ominous. So I go outside, she closes the door, and she looks at me and she goes, Jan, you should never do art. Yeah, I know, real story. Then she opens up the door and tells me to go back in and finish my project. Which I'm like, you know, not sure. By the way, come on in. Welcome. We're just talking about creativity and being spontaneous, and also, welcome, come on in. So you can imagine after having that teacher say that to me, I had a real foreboding about art for quite a while. And so when I thought about doing this service on creativity, I thought, I'm not going to be able to do that with all the criticisms in my head. So I went into my mind and I found my 7th grade teacher and I tapped her on the shoulder and I said, critics shouldn't do art. Out you do. Come on, open the door, get out of here. So I found that was helpful. So I want to invite everyone here who might ever have a critical in their mind, or, you know, kind of feel like or projected and imagine somebody else is looking at you going, oh, they can't do that, right? That's not good enough. Go ahead and get rid of them. And I left some pipe cleaners. You notice you should have some near you there. And go ahead and these pipe cleaners I put out because I find them irresistible. You can bend them, and most people don't consider pipe cleaners real art, so it's okay to play with them. And you can even use them right now to wave away your critic. To just give some space, go ahead, wave it away. And there's also a card that says, I give myself permission to be creative. And I found that oftentimes it helps if somebody gives me permission to be okay with who I am. And so I want you to know that I put this card there just for you. It's not random, it is your card. You can give yourself permission to be creative. So now that we've kind of gotten the critics out, we've gotten a little breathing room, let's take a deep breath and have some fun with creativity. Because I'm going to explore it in a slightly different way than probably you're used to seeing it. As I said, in the little blurb, is creativity just a nice concept, or is it a vital necessity for spiritual growth? And you can kind of imagine that I go with the second, that it's really vital, but it comes in a form we don't usually think of. So first of all, let's try some creativity here together. You notice this is a box. It's kind of actually looks kind of like a Christmas box, and since it's just past Christmas, I figured some of you might relate to it. So using your imagination and creativity, what do you think might be in here? All right, call it out. What do you think?
Something very light.
Okay. Anyone more? Yeah. I know, I've heard a couple of chocolates and stuff, yeah. Okay, well, very good. Good creativity, okay. Now, let's make the box bigger. Let's go all the way up to the ceiling, all the way down to the walls, this big. Now, what could fit in a box this big?
Congregation.
Yeah, this congregation, what else?
Cars.
Yeah. That's right. Any more? Yeah, everything. People say, yeah, trees, people say giraffes, elephants, everything. And we just did that together. We just imagined. And that's where creativity comes. Where Gaston said, imagination is bigger than reality. For there will always be more things in a closed box than in an open one. Because our imagination gets to create. And so we use our imagination all the time. You used it to get here this afternoon. You imagined what you were going to wear, how to get here. You imagine where the door was. We're constantly doing that. That's how we move in the world. Now, you might think that these aren't really creative steps. And sometimes people think, well, you know what I really do, it's like I'm totally not creative when I watch TV. But watching TV is also creative because depending on whether you watch one channel or another one or program you watch, whether you're sitting there folding the laundry or knitting or getting up and moving, you're creating your own special way of watching TV. And so we do that all the time. Now, one of the things that gets kind of confusing and is a problem when people talk about creativity is that it gets confused with control. I want to repeat that because that's more. Creativity gets confused with control, and so I know for myself when I would try to draw something and it wouldn't look like what I wanted it to, then I think, oh, I'm not creative, it's not good enough. But it's really, when we open up, creativity is the opposite of control. Creativity is creation. So, we can think that we could control something. Like, say, I wanted to make somebody feel good. I could think, well, I'll give them $100. But I actually have no control over even that. Say I gave every one of you $100. If I had that much, I would, but we're just going to do it in our imaginations, our creativity. Yeah, sorry. But I would imagine that all of you would have a different reaction to being given $100. Some of you might go, wow, that's great. Some of you will go, what's that? You think I can't make $100? I can make $100. I don't need your $100. Other people would go, $100, what's that worth today? Why didn't you give me $1,000? Or else some will be thinking, oh boy, what does she want now? Payback time. Or, I'm not good enough. I'm not deserving this. So the creativity actually comes in all the different responses that we have. So we really create our world. Within the confines of, like this space, we have amazing flexibility to create something. So we're going to do a little experiment now. So first, take a breath and notice what you're feeling right now. How does your body feel? How does it feel about the people around you? How does the space feel? Does it feel welcoming? Are you tense? Are you relaxed? So notice that. This is kind of your baseline. So you notice how you're feeling. Okay, now we're going to change that. We're going to change it because what are you doing sitting here? Don't you have a to-do list? I mean, really, I'm going to play the role of the critic a minute, then we'll change it. But just to see what happens, I want you to start thinking of all the things you should do. All the things you should have been doing, all the things that, you didn't do this year. It's almost the end of the year. And have you done everything you're supposed to? And now think about, this is a small congregation. And so imagine that as soon as the service is over, somebody's going to come up and ask you to do something. There's a lot of things to do. And if you're new and you're visiting, somebody's going to come up and they're going to ask something of you. And so now, thinking of that, how do you feel? How do you feel inside? Did everyone feel change? Okay, how do you feel about the people around you now? How welcoming does this space feel? And notice that just with our minds, we change the space. So go ahead and shake that off. Go ahead, get that off. Yeah. Now let's create another type of space. Let's create this as a sacred space together. And now when you think about everyone, think of after the service that you're going to find somebody and give them an appreciation. If you've been here before and you know people, then you can appreciate something they've done. And think of a few people. Or if you're just visiting, think of, just looking around and finding something to appreciate, what somebody's wearing. Notice that something is nice, or just smile. Imagine that you're going to go and you're going to smile at a couple people. I see somebody practicing already, that's great. Smiling, yeah. So, now imagine that. And imagine you've got all the time. Take a deep breath. The universe really does give us enough time. And now feel how your body's, what you notice about your body, how your breathing is. How do you feel about the people in this room now? How do you feel about being here? Same kind of questions, just as friendly. How tense do you feel? And you notice a difference. And this is all with your mind. You created something different. So, what I like to think of creativity is that being creative is being engaged in the process of life. It's about relationships, not objects. So I want to say that again. It's about relationships, not objects. The crime our culture commits is to believe that only artists produce art. And they make art into an object that can be judged, sold, and commodified. Then people are either talented enough to produce it or not. In analyzing that message from my 7th grade teacher, I thought that, what might have been happening was that I had some talent in art. I was actually okay. But she thought that I probably would never make it as a career as an artist. And so she was warning me off, trying to think that, I could be an artist. At least I like to think that that's what she was thinking. So, the thing is that I've kind of shown you is that creativity is something we can use it consciously or unconsciously. And since this is a UU congregation, I can pretty well be assured that you come on the side of preferring to make it conscious, to be active in your world. Because after all, this congregation, as a Unitarian Universalist one, is the ultimately creative religion. Now, most people think of Unitarian Universalism as a rational one, as a humanist, as something, related to social activism, but Unitarian Universalism is the most creative religion because we create the Creator. We create our concepts of God, or no God, or Goddess, or Great Spirit. And our third principle encourages us to spiritual growth. Our fourth one encourages us to a free and responsible search. And so I want to give us a moment to think about what do we individually create? Our own spirituality. How is that? If I was to say the word spiritual, what do you think? What goes on in your mind? What do you want to create with that? Now, I've just dropped these words in. I'd love it if, to spend more time talking about each one, but I'm just going to give you a taste. Think about love. What comes up for you? What do you create with love? What do you create with prayer? And so, let me try one that a lot of people get a lot of images with. It's just 3 simple letters. If there's an O, a G, and a D, we put it together and we say God. And so, what do you create when you say God? And then what do you want to create? Because it's really up to you. And you can play with this later. You can take your pipe cleaners if you want with you. You can certainly take your card. And go ahead and keep thinking of creating. You create your world. Create it in a way that makes you feel the love for yourself inside. Because, as I said, this is the ultimately creative religion. We get to be part of it. So, to close today, I came up with a very serious poem that I dedicated to Unitarian Universalism. And it's called God as Metaphor. Is God beige, blue, purple, or pink? And does he or she really care what we think? Is it God Almighty or the mighty all? As in everything, from the sap in trees to the scrapes on knees. Is God an apple, peach, or pear? And why do people care? Arguing about the color of his hair, or the shade of his skin, or what shape his eyes come in. Ultimately, their discussions have no sway, because no one can debate away interconnectedness. Just look at photosynthesis. So it really doesn't matter if you think he is short or tall, because God is a metaphor after all. Thank you.